Okay, so I'm recording for a little bit ahead of time, a little bit before everyone else comes for YouTube. Just to state that we did not manage to record audio in our last session, so we're jumping ahead a little bit to the section on the realization of spirit in history from the um, initial phases of the conversation, which considered its general concept. Just to recap a little bit on that, we discussed at the beginning sections from the philosophy of right, the that sort of last bit where he defines the object of world history, which can be summarized by several quotations I just pulled up here. Further, world history is not the verdict of mere thought, of mere might, i.e., the abstract and non-rational eventuality of a blind destiny. On the contrary, since mind is implicitly and actually reason, and reason is explicit to itself in mind as knowledge, world history is a necessary development out of the concept of mind freedom alone, of the moments of reason, and so in the self-consciousness of freedom of mind. This development is the interpretation, actualization of the universal mind. Um, and knowledge itself, as all reflections of this universal mind. Um, I yeah. So mind is reason, and all knowledge is reason making itself explicit. Reason governs the world, is the substance. It is universal. I guess, as he put it, that reason is. Just gonna find the section here from general concept. It's infinite power, and it is it is being. It is substance and infinite power. And the actualization of it, the in the most concrete sense, reason, the idea, the absolute forms itself as a real events. And so we get history is mind clothing itself from with the form of events, exactly, or the immediate actuality of nature. The stages of its development are therefore presented as immediate natural principles. These, because they are natural, are a plurality external to one another, and they are present therefore in such a way that each of them is assigned to one nation in the external form of its geographical and anthropological conditions. So we get that we're going to talk a little bit more about the uh, presence of reason as possessed by specific nations throughout its development. As it develops, it rejects those nations. That sort of process of overcoming negation, reaffirmation, that I guess projects its. I'm speaking vaguely because I'm not super well versed in this type of reasoning, but that I guess concretizes or further develops the nature of freedom of the reason itself. Okay, so we're having a couple people are going to jump in late. That's fine. And I'm going to send out the link in a couple minutes. Remark: the history of a single world historical nation contains A, the development of its principle from its latent embryonic stage until it blossoms into the self-conscious freedom of ethical life and presents in upon world history, and B, the period of its decline and fall, since it is its decline and fall that signalizes the emergence in it of a higher principle as the pure negation of its own. When this mind passes over into the new principle, and so marks out another nation for world historical significance. After this period, the declining nation has lost the interest of the absolute. It may indeed absorb the higher principle positively and begin building its life on it, but the principle is only like an adopted child, not like a relative to whom its ties are imminently vital and vigorous. Perhaps it loses its autonomy, or it may still exist or drag out its existence, as a particular state or group of states and involve itself without rhyme or reason in manifold enterprises at home and battles abroad. But that's always going to be something that's of a lower stage of activity, one that does not necessarily have the interests of the absolute. He writes that those nations which possess the absolute, if that's even the proper way to even talk about it, I'm sure there's much uh, better versed Hegelians who can, understand the proper terminology to use, but they have sovereign rights. And in comparison to all other nations that exist, um, they rule. The other nations have formal rights, but they do not hold the. They're not at the avant garde of history. If you think of history as the development of freedom, as the development of self-conscious, non-dependent being through the universal mind. And so we get the four stages of world historical development, from the Oriental to the Greek, Roman, and Germanic epochs. Each one of those presenting with it new stages of development, new issues, new problems that they resolve in a further stage, and with the resolution, also begin their decline, and the problems that they succumb to are then resolved by further stage, so on and so forth, until we eventually can march to the end of history. 1 second. So we got some people saying they want to start at 5:30. Okay, and I'm gonna have Corin join me, a few others, and we'll see if we can do a recap of the last session now that I've talked through the philosophy of right. Well, the end of it. Sirens just seem to make up the entirety of the sort of background of our lives nowadays. Apply all Google Hangouts. We'll see if we'll get someone to join on later. Either way, this will live on YouTube. Okay. So we get the from the beginning of the real introduction. Once we get past the varieties of historical writing, I think I divided it in a series of exchanges. So first we get the history of philosophy is an application of thought to history. Celeste didn't even do the reading. The philosophy of history is the application of thought to history. All human activity is necessarily the activity of thought. So we get this counter appeal that thought is subordinate to being, that the data of reality determines thought. Thought emerges from this base of data, of actuality, of lived experience, of empirical understandings that develop the human mind. Philosophy, instead, is characterized as independent thought produced through mere speculation, unconcerned with material conditions. Philosophy thus approaches history with an a priori teleos that necessitates a manipulation of reality. History, on the other hand, is concerned with what actually happened. So we get this pragmatic approach, which is taken as an attempt to reconcile conceptual thought with real events. And that conceptual thought may be there's something that underlines the sort of a narrative you want to pull out of the massive data to talk about the decline of Rome from all these individual stories. Hello, Corin.
How's it going?
Damn. What's going on?
Oh, same old, same old.
Yep.
I was just deeply in slumber. Just seconds ago. This
Excellent.
Is espresso.
That's a good place to be at.
This is tequila.
Oh, we're Jesus. I'm just on espresso now.
What's that?
Oh, what did Rachel say?
Oh, Rachel says that I have a lime and salt.
Nice.
And it's true. Yeah. What are you drinking?
Just espresso right now.
All right.
So I'm in the middle of recapping for YouTube since I did not manage to record audio in our last session.
Oh no!
The story thus far that Hegel presents to us.
Wait, do we have viewers live at this very moment?
That is a good question. I do not know.
Cool.
Not so far, but I did schedule this for 5, and it only just turned 5.
That's true. All right. Anyway, recap.
Let's go. Let's bang it out. Because we're gonna shit talk as soon as 5:30 hits, and no one's gonna. Might as well kill it now. JSYK. Okay. Where was I? So the standpoint of philosophy. So I was characterizing this sort of counter appeal at the very beginning to this. I guess this. He characterizes philosophy as being something that just brings an a priori teleos that then is meant to manipulate reality, and history as this sort of attempt to reconcile a concept that the historian has, which as we heard prior, is a reflection of the person's own spirit, and put that onto real events in past history. This alliance of disparities. So
that's a misguided.
That it is a characterization that does hold true for reflective history, perhaps, or at least a lowercase p philosophy rather than the stronger conception of philosophy that Hegel brings forth.
Sounds good.
And so we get that the standpoint of philosophy differs, and that comprehension is activity of the concept itself, that the understanding and reason behind reality is something that occurs within the concept, and due to that, the one presupposition that philosophy brings, that reason rules the world, that all things are a reflection and product of reason, and the philosophical interpretation is somewhat being entirely missed by this prior characterization. I might be speaking in circles, but that's because
a little bit there, but
yes, deeply trying to still understand why reason necessarily is being an infinite power without any explanation to back that up. But
that's just how it is. That's just what reason. That's just how reason does in the world. That's just what then it becomes world history. Baba ding, baba doom. You have global progress towards freedom and goodness.
It is it is a glorious march that we are in, are we not?
Mm-hmm. I feel the glory. Do you?
Not so sure. So he puts the aim of the introduction as to show the contradiction between A, historical ingredients and higher determinants consisting of human arbitrariness and external necessity. So that's one side of it, and then the other thing he's trying to reconcile is this, again, a higher necessity, an external justice and love, the absolute and ultimate end, which is truth in and for itself,
Right.
which is resolved in and for itself in world historical process.
If he writes in and for and of itself one more time, I'm gonna in and for and by and of itself. It has to understand itself in order to fully become itself within itself.
You know, I thought that I couldn't be any more annoyed at a phrase than how I felt about always already. But you know, because in and for itself seems to really conquer always already as being the most despicably overused phrase.
That's a pretty, I don't know, that's a pretty tough one. Always already is, I never really thought about it, but that is diabolical wordage.
God, I mean, it's something that I had to constantly read while studying Adorno, and you know, not that I ever really did too much of that, frankly, as I still don't understand what the fuck he means by negative dialectics. Say again?
Is he one of those French art guys?
He's actually German.
Oh, even worse.
He's like the first school of critical theory. He was the German professor who opposed his students during the May 68th protests, even though he was supposedly this Marxist revolutionary intellectual. Everyone felt extremely betrayed for some reason when he decided that protesters are all just representatives of fascism.
They just each and every one of them happened to be deeply embroiled in fascist ideology.
If you criticize me, you are a social fascist. That's all I know. But
I mean, frankly, listen, if my race gets to have gender liberation, anyway, recap.
Let me see if I can bring up the symbol. I don't even want to. Never mind.
Yes. It's cursed. It'll curse your stream.
Indeed.
You know that.
We'll immediately get taken down.
Yeah. Ow.
So philosophy brings one presupposition: reason governs the world. The world history is therefore a rational process. The proof for that, as he says, is that reason is substance and infinite power. All reality has its being and substance through reason. Infinite power, that reason is sufficiently powerful to be able to create something more than just an ideal. And it is the infinite content, the essence and truth of everything. Reason creates more than abstractions, but external reality independent of other forces.
Right. That's very religious kind of sentiment going on.
Indeed.
I mean, we can vibe with it,
But if you accept the initial claim that all knowledge is reason making itself explicit to the human mind, which is in itself a reflection of the universal mind, you know?
I don't know. I feel like you're getting a lot out of a little bit there, and I'm not sure it's all legitimate, but
I do not fully embrace this, but I am trying to understand it before I either accept or reject anything.
I agree to your sentiments.
George, hello. I see your non face.
I'm here.
How are you doing?
Oh, hi, hello.
Nice to see you. What's going on?
I'm, just chilling. Getting ready for the discussion.
Yeah, though I did get a bunch of text messages a couple minutes ago saying that people weren't going to be ready until 5:30. Hashtag can we postpone? I would, one does not improvise, the movement of an army, and clearly we cannot.
You have to be ready for anything, Julian.
Dude. Lord.
Or you
I just
have
had
a poorly
what was
disciplined army, frankly.
Yeah, dwindling.
I just had a flashback to Dan Carlin talking about the Kaiser trying to pull out of World War I at the last minute. I unfortunately can probably quote segments of that fucking 15-hour audiobook.
Honestly, give it to us.
I got it like half. Got it like halfway.
The ending was pretty fun. I mean, a little bit. It drags on in the middle.
It drags on in the middle. Yeah, I finished the.
What was that?
What book are you talking about?
What's a podcast?
You said 15-hour audio. Like, damn.
Well, when each podcast episode is 6 hours long, it basically might as well be one.
I guess so.
Like a proto. What? How would you define him? Like a proto-libertarian? Like he's like a radical. He keeps saying he's like a radical, but he's just some like white guy in Portland. No, in Oregon.
Eugene.
No, not in Portland. He's in Eugene, Oregon. It's very important. Very important distinction.
That sounds like a true radical podcast. Great just for listening to it.
Wait, I'm trying to remember. Is that the part of Oregon where they have all the bumper stickers that's like the sovereign nation of Eugene, Oregon?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, really? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, there's some tiny town really tried to secede from the Union in like the 80s, and there's still hundreds of bumper stickers driving around the state of Oregon.
That's powerful.
Where are all the white supremacists in Oregon? Are they in the north or south of it?
That's a good question.
I'd say they saturate the body of Oregon fully.
Okay.
They're
everywhere except Portland, and then like a small haven in Portland.
God.
Yeah, but let's not kid ourselves. They're hidden in Portland.
Yes, the entire body of Oregon.
That's just the entire body of Oregon.
So does Cascadian independence have a racial component to it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I mean,
did you not pay attention to anything Kendra ever said?
I mean, Oregon was one of the last states to let Black people have citizenship. Like, it was, that's why it's still so predominantly white. People are like, oh, it's so progressive. It's like, what? It really just held on to like slavery and discrimination that much longer than literally everybody else.
Yeah, it was a super white flight state.
Yeah.
But I think it was more of a, like, rather than even slavery, it was like that sort of like free stater kind of free labor. Slavery is just taking away our labor by and so having a non-slaved just white utopia is the ultimate goal. But at least that's the way I read a lot of like I guess Western writers in the around the Civil War prior to it. That was the sort of ideology. I wonder if it's related to that, free stater sort of movement.
People are like, well, we just need to put all the slaves back on boats and send them back.
Send them right back.
If you cut the workforce in half, everyone else gets paid more, right?
Well, then you get more jobs.
Yeah, you get more jobs. They're getting all their jobs.
I assume no one ever made that argument, right?
I literally think they made that argument.
Like, we have to get rid of slavery because they're taking our jobs.
Yes.
The jobs that we're forcing them to do.
Du Bois, when describing the condition of the white worker outside of the planter class, sort of had a great descriptions of their absolute destitution and the even greater hatred of the enslaved population, because they felt like, I built this trade to become a blacksmith, and now you just have a fucking, a slave do my work. Now you don't have to pay them as much, and all my years spent training just went down the toilet, and I might as well just give up. And
Oh wow.
just the absolute poverty because they couldn't sell their labor to anyone.
I shed tears every day.
Just shed all of them.
Shed all of them. I'm out of tears, frankly. I'll use that.
So we actually do have people watching. We got 4 people.
Oh really?
What sickos? Thank you.
Degenerates.
Yeah. So we're right now going through a recap while we're waiting for other people to jump on.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go.
Yippee. So he presents the sole aim of philosophical inquiry as to eliminate the contingent. Contingency being the same as external necessity, that is a necessity which originates in causes which are themselves no more than external circumstances. I'm saying how this is sort of reflective of the description of dependency versus self-conscious independence and freedom that he talks about in the section that we read today. Do you have any comments on contingency as you recollect it?
Contingency? I don't even remember that word being used.
Okay. Oh, Lord. I think he only used it once.
I'm just catching up.
Fair enough.
So, we're here for it.
Cheers.
How many more limes do we have?
We have 1 lime.
1 lime. Oh, this is so sad.
We have 4 shots total. You salt, lime, then
No.
Disgusting.
What is it? What's the word? I need to back me up here.
I'm pretty sure it's I don't know. I assumed that it was lime then salt, but you need something for the salt to stick onto, right?
No, I thought it was salt, tequila, lime. The lime definitely comes afterwards.
Yeah.
The lime is definitely at the end because you just hold it in your mouth. But I really thought the salt and the lime were both too masked for tequila post.
Anyway, so contingency. What is this idea of contingency that I totally missed?
Let's just move on because he doesn't even develop it that much. So we get a brief account of the categories of presentation in thought of the historical process. This is the way these are the different, I guess, conceptual ways in which we consider the historical process. We got change, rejuvenation, and reason itself. Change, everywhere we see a motley confusion which draws us into its interests, and when one thing disappears, another at once takes its place. That has 2 different aspects. A negative aspect, that being sadness, this sort of feeling of loss that you get watching all that is good in the world fall along with all that is negative and regressive. The progression of the spirit pulls a lot of people under in its wake. The positive aspect being that out of death, new life arises, and that is characterized in this sort of racialized manner as this static rebirth that is consistent with the Oriental mind, and a progressive rebirth that is consistent with the Western mind.
How could we forget?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. So the phoenix, this Oriental phoenix, which dies and comes back the same each time, the inability for the Oriental people to progress in history.
Which, is a true historical fact that can be
absolutely.
The recleansing.
Indeed. Well, so then you get the recleansing is the Western idea, this sort of enhanced and transfigured progressive rebirth. The thing
I'm getting
dies,
ahead of myself.
Just a little bit. The thing dies and is divided against itself, destroys the form it earlier occupied, and in so doing rises up to a new stage of development. And this is consistent with rejuvenation.
That was the best articulated part of the last chapter, I feel like.
I agree. A lot of it was frustrating as all hell.
But the part about like sadness, like having sadness while looking at history, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're making some sense.
Though I did not necessarily agree with, on the other hand, his description of the enthusiasm that you feel when looking at history. The sense that you, like, who doesn't look at the Battle of Alexander against, the Persians and feel this absolute self-identification with, with the heroics of Alexander the Great.
Did specifically use the word subjugation. I thought that was a good little addition there. Like, yes, the subjugation that Alexander the Great did. You gotta love it.
Maybe we're just orientally, retarded and not able to progress beyond the, sort of base degeneracy of the Oriental mind. And that's why we're not, in groove with the entire conversation here.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting hypothesis.
Yeah, behind that.
It's a hypothesis. Hello, Celeste.
Hi.
How's it going?
Hello.
So,
Is my mic on?
your mic is on,
Yeah.
but your face is not,
Yeah.
which is
How
fine.
do
Damn.
Damn.
You like that?
Okay.
No, in case you wanted to not show your face, But if you want to show your face, I would love to have it,
Well,
Just don't feel
Here
the
I
need to
am.
out yourself.
I'm here now.
All our faces have already been uploaded. It's too late. So
Oh God.
I know.
Scandal.
Yeah.
I've been on the internet since I was a child. There's like no hope for me ever like getting off the grid.
Yeah.
You can never delete a Facebook account. It just lives there forever.
you can, and that's what I did. And they claimed that they deleted everything that I had put up,
Like off
including
of their servers. Sure they did.
which is they notified me 3 months later, like we finally completed the process of purging your existence.
Jesus Christ.
But I'm not sure if I
Not
fully
backlog.
believe it.
No.
People can still post photos of you. Now you just don't have control over it or the ability to see it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very true.
A deep
If only,
frown on
maybe,
Rachel's face.
Elizabeth Warren had won the nomination. I cry every day. That didn't.
Oh, Lord. So we're just recapping the last session, Celeste, until 5:30 when the absolute losers finally join in for being late. Yeah. So we're up to rejuvenation, progressive rebirth, and then reason. In response to the destruction of history, we're compelled to look for justification. So that's our abstract conceptual reasoning to justify the ultimate end, which is one way of looking at it, or as just an ultimate end that is in and for itself. Reason as, if reason governs the world, that which is the principle at the end of history is reason itself. Basically, where that goes up to. If anyone wants to throw down any commentary, we're about to get to the Anaxagoras section, where we get to discuss the birth of that one principle.
Crickets.
Indeed. It is also decidedly not the section we read today. I would have also forgotten, unless I had taken way too many notes on this section.
The last thing I've written down in my notes was beefing with German historians. So,
Which German historian?
Yeah. They are idiots.
I feel like he calls several out, but then he's just generally dissing Germany the entire lecture. I don't know. Not that's not his focus, but he just throws it in there when he can.
And yet he also thinks that Germany is the current state which holds the absolute. So
he thinks that they're at the end. He thinks that they're at the end of their period.
Which means that it would have realized absolute freedom by identifying its own national spirit.
And I guess you'd only really be able to identify it once you're at the end of your possession of it, because that whole Owl Minerva flies at dawn, once you realize that you are the absolute, you're dying.
Yeah. Didn't Susie kind of point that out last time, that the reason he thinks that he can write about it is because he's at the end of history, and that's the only reason it's been like revealed to him?
I mean, I completely agree. History ended here, and
it's never.
God, what I really liked about the what it was, I talked about this last time. The Steiner's epochs as a source similar to the Hegelian historiography, is that he accounts for future history, and, just outright says, don't you know, next 100 years in these times since the destruction of Atlantis, we're gonna get to the Great American Epoch is coming around the corner, which will be shared with the rise of the Slavic people, and which will be the battle against evil.
Look how that played out, frankly,
Indeed.
I mean,
And we won.
right.
Is that where we're at now?
I think we're at the end of it.
We might be at the end of it.
I think Steiner people now would say yes, that it is the American Epoch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we fight evil?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Okay.
evil was in this fight, but I don't know if it was opposed to us.
we fought something.
We fought something. There was evil involved, and I'm leaning towards that we were the evil.
And so the Slavic people were the good, and now they get to surpass us and take possession of history.
Yeah.
Through experimental fake heroin and nuclear waste sites.
Yeah, we won because they have crocodile.
At least their war on drugs created even more powerful drugs. We just got hooked on the same shit. We didn't really progress.
Oh no, it's true.
It just moved to the left a little bit.
Yeah. It was a little weak.
Yeah.
Frankly,
We
I
don't
think
have fun drugs like they do. I feel like they have like fun, interesting highs.
Yeah, we need to go back to opium.
Yeah.
I'll take it all the way back.
No, our souped up pharmaceutical company is thriving. Like fentanyl, hot shit, can kill you with 1 grain.
Yeah.
But like, when are we all gonna get hooked on Dilaudid? That's what I'm wondering.
What happened to ether? We're not doing inhalants anymore.
I don't know about you, but I enjoy a whippet.
No response.
So
So continuing, we get Anaxagoras is first and foremost the principle that reason governs the world. He was the solitary, sober man in the company of drunkards compared to those who did not have such a belief. Socrates presents a first critique in the Phaedo. He dealt only with external causes such as air, ether, water, and the like. The issue is that Anaxagoras failed to apply the principle, adequately to concrete nature, to interpret nature in the light of the principle. And this principle was never anything more than an abstraction, or more precisely, nature was not presented as development of the principle as an organization produced by it with reason as its cause. And so an abstraction pulled from observation of reality rather than a principle which then is the fabric of reality. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not entirely clear on the division that he's setting up there.
I think that goes to the planets are moving with some sort of law. It's analogous to that. We're okay, you can describe the world using reason, but he's not understanding reason as like this driving force in the same way that Hegel's going to understand reason as like a driving force to an end.
But my only question was, in the context of this Greek philosopher performing natural science, at what point are you, when observing air, supposed to then talk about metaphysics as the underlying nature of the blowing of the wind?
1800 scientists did go pretty hard with explaining the entire universe. Like entropy, all that shit, that's when they came up with that shit.
Lord.
You know? It does not make any sense, but you know. So.
I had sent in that email where I sent the definitions that I pulled from that Hegel dictionary on reason and spirit, a link to this. It's to this interview with this philosopher.
Mhm.
It's called, she runs a website called antidialectics.co.uk. In it, she just goes off on that attempt to apply the idea to natural science, and it was I found it very amusing, though Santi did not. And hello, Santi, I see that you just joined, and I recommend it. It was a fun reading. Not that I accept the interpretation entirely.
Hey, Suki!
Hi.
What's good?
What's
Going on, everybody?
Well,
going on?
so we're just recapping before we get into the main meat of it. I think I'll just wrap it up now with the discussion of the nature of evil.
We didn't get to that part last time, I think.
Then maybe we'll start with it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll skip the nature of God because I just don't want to get into that. We'll also skip the Trinity, or if someone wants to present the Trinity as a rational process, feel free to do that. Because I volunteer, George, to explain the Trinity to us.
I'm good.
You're good to do it.
You
Awesome. We do have two Catholics here, so I feel like that should definitely fall on you.
Yeah, what about the Trinity? It's like Ariel could find the Trinity.
Well, explain it as a dialectical process.
Oh yeah, no.
Of negation and reconstitution.
Father and son want to beat the shit out of each other, and then it results in the spirit. It's really where it all came from.
That sounds like some Aryan heresy. I don't know.
Aryan heresy. Scandal.
Oh, what's going on, everybody?
Well,
We're hanging.
chilling. We're chilling. Okay, now that it's 5:30, I'm just gonna get something to wet my throat.
Oh,
That's a good idea.
Moist throat. Gotta think of your throat as like a garden. You gotta, wet it.
Hey, George, are you the famous George, the dude that Julian would make those videos with in high school, and who later on made more videos?
Wow, way to out me. I sure am.
I'm a fan. I'd just like to say that I'm a fan.
Thank you. I don't know what to say in the light of fandom.
I don't know either.
Yeah, no one's ever.
Well, we're in the same plane where we're all just trying to understand Hegel. So
That's right.
Hegel's the great equalizer.
we're all leveled down, I think I saw you play Call of Duty on one of these streams. Once.
Maybe I was probably sucking because I suck at it.
I can't tell.
I remember Halo. I don't know about Call of Duty. It was pretty good, though.
That's freezing.
Yeah, maybe stick to Halo.
Yeah, I was probably even worse at that then. Actually,
You should play Pikmin.
what?
Yeah, play Pikmin too.
Oh, I don't know that game.
You should just get.
I only play normie games.
I only play first-person shooters.
Yeah, I only play games for fucking idiots.
Propaganda games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Only U.S. military certified video games.
Yeah. I only play recruitment psyop.
So Santiago, you're saying you're not a Dwarf Fortress expert?
Yeah, no.
That's
I think you should. Hey, Pikmin is a perfect military simulation, in my
Pikmin.
opinion.
Is it? Oh shit! I think my brother would like tell me about this game.
Terrible.
Some kid in his class when he was like in 3rd grade, like thought they were real or something.
He's not wrong.
What do you
Wait, how'd
make
you spell that shit?
Can someone check the live stream and let me know if it's working for them? I just want confirmation outside of myself.
Fans.
How do you check?
Brother would like tell me about this game.
Julian, when he says
Terrible.
The sovereignty of reason, what does that mean?
That
Yo, what?
Not,
what
reason
okay,
is
not
the
just a Julian
determining-
question. Anyone can answer.
Yeah.
Anyone can answer that.
but that reason is the determining principle in reality, in our in the human mind, in the development of history. Reason
Is it because reality only exists if it can be appraised by consciousness?
knowledge is reason making itself visible.
Right.
So it's not even just that all reality is a reflection of the universal mind that is making itself more apparent the more knowledge you gain and the more self-knowledge and independence you gain.
I see. So
Some fucking
the role of
honest-
evil.
Ah,
So okay, so that's what he meant about the role of evil and within reason. So reason is linked to evil.
in what sense?
And vice versa.
Are you interpreting?
No. I'm trying to clarify his sentence.
So I would say, so let's get to that.
Because that's in the end of the last chapter, I think, where he starts talking. Yeah.
After he describes the sort of like God is revealed for the human, for the Christian religion and the nature of providence, that pretty much sets the groundwork for evil. In that, if all of human history operates through the actions of providence, that if the universal spirit, world spirit, I'm not really sure which ones are which because they're all translated the same here, and I'm not sure if you saw how many different words there were for spirit in German that he uses. If that all, if that all culminates in itself and its final position, then all that is negative to that progression is evil, is against providence, is a concrete event of evil. You said wait,
But is evil necessary?
For it to progress in the first place, isn't that?
Or like, is it part of it anyway? Like, evil is like,
I would say,
is it inherent in, or no?
negation of the print of the idea is not necessarily it is affirmative insofar as it forces the object that is being negated to reconstitute itself on a higher stage of development. So negation is affirmation.
Yeah.
But what he means by the negative side of history, the way I described it, is that where the finest and noblest is. So he writes that where the finest and noblest is emulated upon its altar. The way I kind of interpreted it was the events that can be understood as a development of an alternative path contrary to that which prevails at the end of history. So we can't know what evil is until we reach the end, because then we know what the narrative was.
So is there
Negation
the
of progress.
possibility? Is there the possibility of not reaching the end though? Not really, right?
No, because it always progresses towards the end is defined as being the work of God.
So evil is just kind of cucked the entire time.
Yeah, no, I feel like he like really negates the power of evil at all in historical events.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, I was kind of picking up on this that he almost doesn't believe in evil, because he's arguing that everything that comes into reality is in fact the work of God. Like, you know, even if it's bad, like, it doesn't really qualify as evil if he's truly saying that everything that physically manifests in the world is the work of God. I mean, it's like the kind of person who thinks everything is 100% the best.
But how can, maybe this is a simple question, but how can he define evil as like, so he defines evil as like an object, not like actions or thoughts, but like
It is
like
concrete, but it can be events.
concrete. Okay, events. But what are events like? I don't know. Those aren't those like decisions and like rights and like people. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. What exactly like where the individual begins and the spirit ends is a little bit, you know, he would say that the spirit is exactly that medium for which every individual exists. It is a substance. And so,
The substance, yeah, I was about to say.
So it's hard to really like how can evil exist, but yet at the same time, you can't ever define it until you're at the end of history, and we're never going to get to the end of history if you
Right.
as you
Yeah.
see, whenever you declare it doesn't happen. I don't.
I don't know, but
happen.
I was making a really compelling argument in the thing I read this morning about how
Oh.
technology has eclipsed us and humans don't exist anymore, and therefore history is over. He's kooky.
It's not that
Oh,
we exist,
so
but
we'll only
we're-
know when we reach the Matrix.
Well, we won't know. We'll be a lower life form at that point.
Well, the whole point of the Matrix is that they choose to give up the end of history and go back to having raves inside of the smoke planet.
Is
Right?
that what the Matrix is about? I've never gotten about 45 minutes of it.
100%. It is what it is
like
about.
the third movie. They have like a
That cave
sort of
rave.
like Jesus like crucifixion scene, and then they have raves in the desert. It's really stupid.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I hope
amazing.
you guys had been totally on point until the moment I came in, and then the moment I dropped in, like we just got off topic.
Talking about
We were having a really rigorous intellectual
Yeah, I
discussion.
was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, thank God Phoebe hasn't arrived yet
Yeah.
because we're really in.
We were fully only referencing the text as like within itself. Like we weren't bringing in any outside reference.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
actually
I saw-
made an oath at the beginning that we were never going to mention secondary sources again, and only discuss the thing in itself.
Doesn't he dismiss secondary sources?
I saw your face. I was like, I gotta talk about Neo.
I mean, he does. I don't think he dismisses them. He just says that. I mean, if you're saying secondary sources in like reflective history,
He's just more right.
they're just limited.
Yeah.
It's not like the
phone keeps
original
ringing it. I don't
histories.
think I'm supposed to pick it up.
Why the landline?
The house I'm in.
Oh, are you in Park Avenue again?
I haven't left. No, I'm definitely not supposed to pick it
You
up.
definitely told me that you went to your home and were upset that people weren't sweeping. So
There was a pile of dirt on the floor. There was a legitimate pile of dirt on the floor.
goddamn.
That's pretty wild.
Like,
Totally my
that's
house.
ridiculous.
How did you get the pile there in the first place if not by sweeping? Jesus Christ.
It was like, no, it was like he had a bag of
I'm
soil.
going back to my ivory tower on Park Avenue.
Totally reference the text. Goodbye.
He'd stolen,
Yep,
he'd
just
stolen
gone.
street flowers. He'd stolen flowers that are for the people.
Oh, I found a quote to back up my statements. Quote,
Good.
in other words, we must first of all know what the ultimate design of the world really is. And secondly, we must see that this design has been realized and that evil has not been able to maintain a position of equality beside it. So,
There you have it.
if you know the mind of God, I guess you can distinguish between things. But if not, then I guess we
Right.
can't say anything.
I see. Reason cannot stop.
Nice.
Is it hogwash? Should we accept it? That's up to you, audience.
We weren't
That's
meant
the
to.
only thing that runs through my mind when I'm reading it. And I'm always trying to convince myself, no, don't think that. Don't think that.
Yeah, like
Take it at its face value. Come on, don't. Not hogwash.
Apparently, no, you go, Susie.
No, yeah, I just like it's like I'm trying to just read it as like following the line of an argument and like seeing if it has like internal cohesiveness more than like whether it can like be applied to like what I experience in reality. You know?
Like whether
Yeah, does the argument break itself or is it coherent?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a really generous way to look at it.
No, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm
I was just trying to.
Well, you can look at anything anyway, you know.
Yeah.
There's no
Not
objective.
according to Hegel.
I'm not sure. Well,
True.
I would say.
I mean, since we're reading it, I don't want to wipe my ass with it.
Yeah.
Every time I crack it open.
Exactly.
You're like, oh.
So according to my friend who like knows philosophy people, Joe, there's some people who are like real deep Hegelians who drink the Kool-Aid who are convinced he's a great writer.
Whoa.
And
He's
they like,
actually
Everybody was a bad writer, is what I'm discovering. In the way that everyone in the Middle Ages didn't know how to paint until they invented it. No one.
I think
Right.
Goddamn.
Santi, I think Susie as well, or Susie, you didn't go to the same school as Santi
No,
did.
Phoebe,
did you?
we went to the same school.
Oh, okay. So, you guys and I can't like this because apparently it is deeply antithetical to the way the French think. Because it's like they're just like you can't make a claim. Oh, that school. That's what I
I
meant.
thought you meant college. I was like,
No, I know you went to the same college as me. Because it's like the French are just like you can't make these claims about all of the universe. That's too big for one tiny man.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just excited
Yeah, I
for
guess
when
they're not
we.
very metaphysical, right?
Yeah, the French don't like that shit. Also, they're
No.
better writers.
Yeah.
I'm just
They're
excited
shitty about
for when
other
we do
things.
Spinoza and have to read just pure geometric reasoning, and you know, will we have new standards developed on what is bad writing? I don't know.
Well, if we take what Susie said to be true, then Spinoza's writing will be worse than Hegel's.
Julian just wants to get back to the deep shit.
I mean, I genuinely do not
Yeah,
want to read
this
him
is too
next.
vague for you.
I think where I most have issues with that interview that I mentioned already, and that Santi and I messaged about the Rosa Lichtenstein anti-dialectics interview, is that they're definitely taking dialectics, capital D, way too seriously, and viewing it as something that even in the minds of the dialecticians needs to be applied to every single concept. I think it's just another tool in the toolbox and can be useful at certain times, especially when you're trying to rationalize why, as the communist state of China, you need to support South Africa. Shit like that. Talking about contradiction seems to work really well. And I say that jokingly, but I would agree with how Reuty talks about the history of philosophy. Like, it is good when it's useful. That sort of pragmatist sort of position.
It hit when it hit.
When it doesn't, it's not true. When it does hit, it is true. Truth is just determined based on usefulness.
Which is
I like the idea.
Oh, sorry. If we're learning Hegel to become wizards, will this allow us to better smite our enemies? That's like my.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I really
Hegel.
I need to learn the spells.
Look, if we don't have smiting capabilities by the end of this, I'll be extremely disappointed.
Harry Potter really ruined us as a generation.
I'm starting to believe that the science of logic is where the real spells are hidden. and that the introductory lectures for his undergraduate students don't have it.
In here.
Julian, you're doing what I did with Boris Vian, where you'll read this first Hegel novel or the Hegel book, and you'll be like, I didn't like this, but people keep telling me it's great, so I'm just gonna read every single thing he's ever written, and then I can actually know if I'm right or not. That's why I've now read 7 Boris Vian novels, and he's still a terrible writer.
Amazing.
It's always great when you're self-doubting. You're like, but he's so famous, and everyone's always read him, and all
the hot pretentious French boys like him.
You're like, this is literal garbage. This is nonsensical. I'm sure you could pull Joseph Smith's readings from a similar era, and be like, oh, this kind of sounds the same.
Smith hits. I don't know. Yeah. Native American angels.
It hits.
Just. Okay. So moving on to the section which we actually decided to read for today, and damn, I just dropped a whole quarter into my drink right now. While trying
drink the quarter. Drink the quarter.
Again.
Drink the COVID quarter.
No, take it out.
No. Julie, you're so impressionable.
I wasn't willing to let it waste.
If you didn't get corona by now.
Yeah, Julie, how haven't you gotten corona yet?
Yeah.
It's a little thing I like to call an N95 mask, you know? It's a special little invention that
can you reuse them?
Yeah, reuse them all the time. Actually, I have a question for Rachel.
Should you reuse?
Do you allow patients on your ward who have symptoms for COVID-19?
I mean, yes and no. It's a psych unit. So, if someone has a cough, it's freaking spring. We just take their temperature every shift, but that's it. If they have any 2 out of the 3, they're ICU problem immediately.
I see.
Okay. That's what I assumed based on how triage seems to work in New York, at least, where even if the patient literally has a heart rate of 100, they'll say, I know they're freaked out because of anxiety, but it might be a cardiac issue, so we're just gonna have them go to the ICU and we'll just have them sit in the ER until they have normal vital signs.
Yeah, until your heart rate drops as you're in the ER during a pandemic.
Yeah,
well, I haven't picked up a single psych in half a year, so I've actually avoided dealing with this. So whatever.
Apparently, the fire alarm was pulled at Cornell on 68th.
Honestly,
that doesn't mean anything to you, but I thought it was pretty funny, the idea that a fire alarm went off in the midst of a pandemic.
I've been trapped in those elevators because of fire alarms pretty frequently. I mean, at least twice, which, considering how infrequent I go there, I feel like that's a good amount. I've been trapped once. Other time, I managed to not get trapped because someone skipped me in the elevator line.
Fuck them.
Yeah, there's.
You pulled that fire alarm just to screw them over.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I did that. I would never do that. I mean.
I don't want to.
So, moving on to the section that we read today.
Yeah, how about that?
Does anyone want to introduce the beginning?
No, it's okay.
I got my dope snacks. Way long little fish, straight from China.
You said China just like Donald Trump.
Yeah. China. They come from China.
Wait, where do I?
I'll let you figure it out. Oh.
Flipping to the beginning of it for me. Okay.
Oh, they're so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
So we started at page 47. Was that it? Or 44?
Page 44.
Yeah, 44. Sorry.
That beer hits with these fish.
Mm-hmm.
So we open with an attempt to try and define reason in itself, which is the ultimate end. Sorry. To try to define reason in itself in relation
think
to the
you meant
world, that's what
freedom
the
this
ultimate
chapter.
end of the world is. No, I don't think he directly says reason, not freedom.
Oh, really? All I could hear was yak yak, freedom, yak yak.
I was like, boy, do I have a country for you.
Yeah.
Man,
Little does he know, Prussia is about to, have a hell of a century.
Hey, he actually predicted it because he said, all nations are only glorious at the beginning of their lifespan and then become like decadent and worthless.
Apparently, Zizek and his bro of Hegelians spend a lot of time trying to like sort of remove him of that stain of the pro-Germanic Empire shit.
Oh my.
But like,
This is really pro-Germanic
I don't-
Empire.
I don't see it happen.
it's sort of like contextualizing it in a weird way, I guess. But it just seems like a lot of work I don't really have the time for.
That's why you're not Zizek.
That's why I'm not Zizek. Exactly.
Is that what you told them when they tried to recruit you?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm not Zizek. I don't got this kind of time.
Sounds like too much work.
Well, doesn't ultimately, all things have their decline. I don't know if it's it necessitates active rehabilitation without just pointing out that history didn't end and thus Germany had to die, and he himself was a reflection of Germany's decline and that he did not see it. I don't know. I don't know if it requires to spill that much ink over, but perhaps
Wait, is Hegel a contemporary of Bismarck?
Lightly. There's some overlap.
I wonder if he wrote anything about Bismarck.
Okay. Did they actually share? Okay,
I think because one of the things
I don't think so.
One of the things that the gang of Hegelians like state is that to some extent his like writings are being looked over by the German emperor, the Prussian emperor, and like he's sort of hedging himself a little bit by writing that kind of stuff.
So Bismarck would have been like 25 when Hegel died. It's and Bismarck.
So Bismarck was a student of Hegel.
No, he was not. But he came into his prime
Damn it.
much later in life.
Wasn't he like infamously stupid?
Bismarck?
No,
Or one of them?
no.
No, Bismarck is like brilliant.
Yeah, he's kind of a genius.
Yeah, he's like an evil, brilliant man.
The person in leftist history who had like the deepest connection to Bismarck was Lassalle, and he sort of had,
Yeah, but you don't like Napoleon either.
Say that again?
You don't like Napoleon either, and they kind of fulfill a similar historical role in their respective countries.
Well, Hegel did think that Napoleon was the world spirit made flesh.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was asking
Did
if
he?
you fucked with Bismarck.
Well,
I guess
you were
he was-
asking if Hegel fucked with him, or not
Yeah.
if he would have, but he probably would have seen Bismarck as if he had to live through the Franco-Prussian Wars, he probably would have been. I mean, did he? No, he did not. He would have been
No.
really happy.
Wait, no. What,
It's
did
kind
he?
of sad that you didn't get to see German unification, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think he saw
It makes me
Germany.
sad.
Yeah.
Franco-Prussian Wars, 1871. I think he did.
No, the second Franco, like when Germany unified in Versailles.
Yeah.
We're gonna look
Napoleon
this up.
III.
Okay.
Second
No, Hegel
Franco-Prussian
was
War
gone by then.
was.
Yeah, he was gone by that. Sorry, I was confusing
Yeah,
myself.
18th. No, because there are several. So.
Yeah. I was thinking about the one with Louis XVI.
Louis.
Yeah, I was way before.
Yeah, no. So this is 1870, and that's sort of where you get, Bismarck, Napoleon III, and all the people who would eventually make up that the senior staff of the First World War German Army. Anyway, so we try to define reason in itself. If we consider reason in relation to the world, it amounts to asking what the ultimate end of the world is. We cannot speak of an ultimate end without implying that this end is destined to be accomplished or realized. We therefore have 2 points to consider. Firstly, the content of the ultimate end itself, i.e. its definitions and such, as such, and secondly is realization.
What?
Are you good?
What?
So content, it's like content and form, basically,
Sorry, my
of,
notification.
of the end.
Well, content and methods, maybe.
Method, yeah. Practice. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kind of covers content in like 2 pages and gets to the rest of this chapter is really about the realization of it through that process from the individual rising above nature to the nation rising above its the nation passing the torch of the spirit from one nation to another. And I think it'd also be interesting to talk about like what really is the nation for Hegel and what constitutes that political grouping that can possess an absolute. So, what is the definite? What is that definition? What is the content of the ultimate end of history?
Living in it, baby.
Are you asking rhetorically, or are
I'm
you
asking the people.
Oh, you mean our listeners?
You.
Oh, okay.
Or the explorer.
Because Julian keeps asking things, assuming that there are these listeners that I don't think exist.
I literally ask whenever I ask a question. I'm asking
The rules of radio.
Minus Celeste, who didn't read it.
At the risk of sounding like I understand what Hegel's talking about, which I don't, I don't know. I feel like a lot of what he's going for is looking at that ultimate freedom that he's just as such a boner for this whole time, quite honestly.
Yeah, he's
So I
massive.
feel like he would love to believe that the end of history is humanity realizing ultimate freedom and now doing like exclusively only things to promote freedom, and that would kind of be the end because there's no more conflict and resolution to a certain
That makes
extent.
sense to me.
That's why he was so hot for his own German brethren at that point, because he thought that they like figured it out, that they understood and recognized freedom to be the ultimate form of humanity. But I don't know.
When I was reading it, I kind of inferred that maybe he means like being able to act in accordance to fulfill an ideal without there being obstacles.
And free from like pulsions and compulsions.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also in like a larger sense, like being able to act in accordance
To an ideal.
to fully act in accordance with one's principles
Yeah.
without any sort of external, like self-created external, like objections, to
Like
it,
the idea
or obstacles to it.
The ideal is not enough. Like you can have the ideal, but unless you can act according to that ideal.
Yeah, exactly. To be like in consistent accord with the ideal.
Exactly.
Are you kind of talking about like the actualization of an idealized society, and he thought we got to the first step of that?
I don't know in the reading if I read
yeah.
there being anywhere where it said that like, but I didn't read the full part, so I maybe didn't get to it. But I don't know if it said like that Germany was in that stage. Like, does he say that?
I didn't hear that, but everyone keeps talking about how Hegel thought he was the end of history, which would, to me, mean he thought we got there.
I mean, he does describe his ideal society in a way in the Philosophy of Right, but I haven't read it in its entirety. I've only skimmed some of the end sections in preparation for our talk last week, and he does describe a society which is definitely not the Prussian society of his day, and I don't.
What are
necessarily...
some of the elements of?
I literally only read the section on world history and looked at like a couple segments from other parts of it, but he does discuss the nature of laws, how morality should be handled, the nature of religion, the nature of property relations, of rights, and that's the it starts off with contract rights are discussed and other such.
Yeah.
Woo.
You gotta love it.
Absolutely.
So he does actually get more technical and away from a lot of this fluffy philosophical stuff.
Yeah, but that's his politics book. This is more supposed to be the philosophy of history, and then those other things have all different focuses. But so his concreteness though is still always built upon his earliest publication, this sort of journey from sensation to absolute knowledge, from the ability to have your basic senses to religion as the endpoint, and and the phenomenology.
Yeah.
Did anyone else get a particular idea of what Hegel's conception of the end of the world and history was?
I mean, I just taken it as being like a oneness with the spirit.
Of itself and for itself and by itself.
Yeah, it didn't really make much sense to me because I'm not Christian.
Well, I would
But,
say
like,
that it's hard
that's how I
to be
took
one with something
It was,
that is
it was
always
a nice
moving.
defense of the Trinity in what we read today.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get to that. Yeah. Well, I was a little bit foggy on that, but then we get to man as the antithesis of nature, rising
Oh
up to
yeah,
a
that
second
was
world.
so strange.
Well, so I think I understood that later on, like 10 pages on, as he's describing this sort of progression, the difference between like impulses and what's it called? It's the impulse and intuition. Something that is much more related to nature. This, how do I put it? This way in which there are natural inclinations built upon our like biology of our natural being, and how the human story is about through education overcoming the natural impulses.
Those impulses.
Yeah.
Nature is like characterized also by its like interrelatedness, like that everything is interdependent, so everything is like reactive to each other. Whereas like I guess man has the ability to like exist independently from catalysts.
Just wait till he came to this century.
Yeah, exactly. Which like I don't know. I feel like we've moved really far past that mode of thinking.
Do you think this is the backbone of the climate change denial?
I mean, I would say even like I would not necessarily know, because freedom for him is a lack of dependence, but it's not the individual's independence, it's the humanity's independence. And so all our desires have no relation to our natural state. We've completely like we are, we would be some sort of perverted monstrosity in comparison to our natural state, and perhaps that is independence in a way. No relation to the natural world in any manner, in any serious manner, at least.
Yeah,
it's those anarcho-primitivists who are degenerate.
Also, like when he's using the metaphor of the seed as a way to understand like what the spirit is, right? Is that like the seed, and then like there's the plant, and that it only comes back to the seed, so it seems almost like fruitless. No. But it's like that the seed is like gaining knowledge of itself through like the process of being, right? But like, I guess my question there, I don't know if it makes sense, but like my question was kind of like, then why is it different then? Like, why are the essential processes of nature then different from like the inherent like nature of what the spirit is?
I think he distinguishes between the natural processes, because he talks about like the cycle of life and death and like the seed, the tree, the seed. But when he talks about spirit, he says that what distinguishes it is this sort of building on itself character.
Oh, that it's not purely cyclical.
Exactly. It's like progressive.
It's an knowledge of its
Oriental
own
mentality, Susie.
Huh?
That's an Oriental mentality.
That's the Oriental mentality.
Well, no, yeah, because it's the whole idea of the spirit self-aware.
Yeah,
right.
And it's
Which is
like
what he said. He said that before as well, like in the passage we read last week.
The knowledge that is gained by one nation, for example, by one spirit of a nation, is never lost or never dies. But it's just like it continues.
But in the long game, like it's only to return to its own essence, right? Like which is already in itself. Like that whole thing about like how gravity is like a center outside of matter, and matter is like reaching towards it, and the spirit is like the center is already within it, and then that's like why the Trinity is a really good
but he does
illustration.
this. He distinguishes between matter and spirit.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right? Yeah.
That's like the difference. But it's like spirit is always just
Mhm.
going back to what it already inherently is.
Right.
But that's
And
like,
that
that's like
is within itself.
What
Yeah.
it is changing though. It turns back to itself, but what it is in itself is always developing. And so while the process itself is cyclical, the methodology of the spirit, its absolute expression is always moving to a higher stage. And so
So it's like a spiral.
self-realization.
But
Exactly.
not
It is a spiral, and even uses that.
but it's a spiral that's
The
moving
You
upwards.
guys,
ratio.
we've tripped acid, Susie. Come on.
Yeah.
Maybe if Hegel stuck around long enough to, see what Darwin was up to, he'd be like, oh, even the natural processes are starting to reflect upon themselves and refine their process
Right.
and get closer to God as evolution and time and generations progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he'd be like Engels and completely have just absolute problems accepting Darwin's theory because it was undialectical for some reason I don't fully understand.
Wait, didn't Engels write like a parallel history of the human species or
You should read that.
collaboration? What?
Man. Oh man, I don't think I could bear that.
I don't. Ever since I read his description of motion as like a dialectical process of objects being in one place and another at the same time, and the resolution of that
But
being
that's
the act of
true.
movement, I just stop.
What the fuck are you talking about? That's totally true. Open up your mind.
That's how moving works. Did you not?
Obviously, the intention is just as real as the actual, clearly.
Dude.
In the end, it really is not journey before destination. It always is about an empty space between 2 points that is dialectically resolved in an instant, right?
That's how
He
I
does
treat
talk
my
about the importance
situation.
of transition.
Oh, God. Just ignore every terrible smell you've ever inhaled in the subway or all the other things. Because that's just a transitional heterotopia that is not really real anyway. And
Heterotopia is a great word.
I'm so sorry. That just
Who
slipped
invented that
out.
one?
I was reading Foucault. It just came out of my mouth. I didn't mean it.
That's what happened.
Julian, welcome to my heterotopia.
Is that the 1950s?
This is a heterotopic space.
It literally is, but we do not have to talk about that.
Come on, Julian, explain.
No. Just
It is, but you're not ready for that
I'm not
conversation.
It's a different book.
You can't handle the truth, okay?
The red pill.
In my notes, I just wrote, gravity is substance of matter. Freedom is substance of spirit.
Wow.
So I guess
Science.
because
Good
for
enough.
me, I feel like that boiled down a lot of things. What do you guys think?
I think you hit the nail on the first third of that meeting on his
Yeah,
head.
wow, what a great summation.
That's really good. Yeah. Everything up, that's like everything up to like 53.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
Done and done.
I know that does kind of confirm for me that Hegel was a bit of a pretentious asshole, if that isn't clearly evident. I don't know. Sort of looking at like how people occasionally pick one word that are really, really excited about, like freedom, Like it couldn't have been love, it couldn't have been compassion, it couldn't have been anything else. It's like what the whole world revolves around, material, gravity, spirit, freedom, like.
Well, it could be one of the things, as there have like been many examples of this text of like just poor translation. Like that word might have different meanings, or it might have even been used, like different words might have been used
Yeah.
in the original text.
That's very
Yeah.
Also, I guess like our relationship to freedom is very like codified.
Yeah, super
Yeah,
mediated.
you're
by,
really
like,
triggering me every time you say it.
Yeah, because we've all been. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like a nationalistic like
As soon as anyone says freedom, you're like,
staple in this country. So
shut
it's
the
just-
fuck up, MAGA head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like I feel like it's very like culturally connotated.
One could argue it's a
Yeah.
very ingrained part of our current national spirit in America, and
Exactly.
as particularly
Which is without doubt a decadent and corrupted.
Culture
Yeah.
dying.
Well,
Dying.
it's interesting because it's like both a patriotic, like that kind of MAGA rhetoric, but then it's also like has like a racial history of like
Right.
slavery, and it's like this like incredible dichotomy. It's like
Yeah.
super 1 and 0
Yeah.
of the word freedom, and like how one of them actually hasn't been like totally like fruited,
Yeah.
and like that's totally erased from
Yeah.
any of this shit. Obviously, you have to like remember that, unless you go insane.
What's the definition between what's the difference between freedom and liberty? Like, are they
Good question.
interchangeable? Like, why did the translator use freedom?
Instead of like liberty.
Yeah.
Does liberty have a certain legal sense to it?
It's also, I guess, like reactive, maybe.
Like civil.
What the original
I
word?
think there's a civil dimension to it.
I'll look this up in my dictionary that's translating from the German.
Yeah, Julian. We were wondering what maybe freedom was translated from a different kind of word or different words.
Yeah, if we could get more context on what that particular translation was.
Or maybe he
I
was
will
just
give you
that hard about it.
Julie, can you do these things for me?
I can, and it will take me a few minutes though to find the part of my dictionary that has it because I don't have it digital.
Guys, can we all just take a second to give Julian an applause? Not because he's a health working hero, but because he's our Hegelian hero.
More importantly,
He's really structured this whole thing.
Thank you for your service.
I'm gonna post at 7 and thank your Hegelian hero.
There's access to the same dictionary that you.
In this time of paradigm shifting, don't forget to thank your Hegelian hero.
yeah, we all at 8 p.m. we all got to do the Hegel howl.
I didn't even see freedom in the dictionary that you sent.
I did not send. I only sent two words.
Oh.
I have a 400 page page book that I'm scrolling through right now.
Curating information.
I have to say, scrolling through books is the least fun experience in the world.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing worse than, like, especially like with this text too, because I have no idea what page in the PDF I'm at, so I'm just constantly like running through. It's such an unpleasant experience.
You're like, where is the one goddamn sentence?
Yeah, it's awful.
Okay, so I'm on F. Okay, so
I'm not on Twitter, but I imagine like most tweet threads feel that way too.
No, it's all like very reduced for your enjoyment.
Yeah.
It does help it feel less
It's all about user
important.
experience.
It's the opposite of that experience.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can imagine the diametrical opposite to that feeling, that's what Twitter is.
Come on, this is like post book.
Phoebe, you should get on Twitter. You would love Twitter.
Yeah, you would love Twitter.
Why
Phoebe.
would I like Twitter?
You're a Twitter gal.
What? That sounds like an insult.
You would like to take.
It's just like hot take.
I feel like
love hot take.
I feel like
And you
I
have a
only like
few-
my own hot takes. I don't really like hearing other people say ridiculous.
Well, yeah, you
things.
can tweet.
But you can also follow people you fuck with, like the Chapo guys.
No, no, I prefer my really limited engagement with all the people in my lives.
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
freedom. So, do you want me to try to say the German word?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Freiheit or Frey.
Freiheit.
Freiheit, of course, dude. I
Yeah.
could have guessed.
Okay.
Dude, what the
Listen.
No, me and Santi took like
7 years.
Yeah,
of
we took
German.
like 8 years of German, and we can't like cobble together like one
Like
single
8
sentence.
years of German?
What the
Yeah.
fuck?
What?
God,
It's really
I
shameful.
hate
It's one
all
of my
you
biggest
people.
shames. All we did is bully our German teacher.
For like 8 years.
Oh, you know, I think our German class in my school also was just 2 kids who bullied the German teacher.
It's always that.
It was,
We
yeah,
bullied our Italian
We
teacher. but
went
she
to
was
school in Colombia, and it was also that. In a different country, it was the same like dynamic.
Is it just because the only thing that Americans, or I guess just anybody, knows about Germans is that they used to be Nazis?
No, I don't know. I think it's some sort of personality attribute that all German teachers have across the world.
dude, Frau Burmeister was not that believable.
The
No.
Koch brothers had a Nazi nanny, and she apparently like tormented them and would like beat them if they didn't have bowel movements at like the exact same time every day.
Holy
And then
shit.
in the late
Smart.
30s she left the family because she said that she was so moved by Hitler's taking of the Rhineland that she had to go back to her country to be with her people.
Wow. That makes so much sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Wait, who?
The Koch brothers.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
The megacorp that owns Stumptown was started by a Nazi, and there was like a very prominent like, New York Times article about it a year ago. And they sent us an email, which I hope to God I screenshotted. But it was like something along the lines of like, just don't talk about the Nazis. Just
If somebody comes in asking about the Nazis, just act like you don't know what they're talking about.
My favorite thing though is just how we discovered that European fascist terrorist organization was being run by 13-year-old in Estonia.
Oh, you saw that? This Lithuanian kid?
So
Oh my
good.
god. Yeah, I was like, that's how you know neo-Nazis are fucking dumbasses, because their leader is like a 13-year-old kid.
There's some smart 13-year-olds out
He really
there.
thought he was like in a fucking anime. He was like Lelouch leading the fucking like revolutionaries. It's just
It's amazing.
schoolboy
The
by
cops-
day,
the cops just wanted
fascist
to quote it.
revolutionary by night.
Minecraft by day, fascism by night.
No, Minecraft all day.
Yeah, right.
Fascism never ends.
Okay, so those words in German correspond closely to freedom and free. They refer both to freedom of the will and to freedom in all its social and political senses. This freedom contrasts with
shit.
slavery, dependence, compulsion, necessity, etc.
Yeah, it's more philosophical.
Yeah.
concept.
Hegel
Okay, well,
tends to
that
interconnect.
makes sense.
Yeah, this definition is 4 pages long. I'm gonna, I'm going to try to find a section that
That's
is
Freiheit.
the most
I must say,
productive.
I'm a little dumb.
Feeling das Freiheit haben.
Freedom was like legal freedom, whereas liberty was the kind of conceptual people are free to do as they want.
Oh, I thought the opposite.
Yeah, me too.
Me too, because liberty sounds bougier, but like no, freedom was the
Oh.
legal one, whereas liberty was the whole concept. If you think
Oh,
about
wow.
it, liberty is the Latin, it'd be a older, more all-encompassing term, whereas freedom is Old English. It just doesn't sound nice. It's like freedom, you know.
But is that consistent for the German? Or
Freiheit sounds sick.
Is that English only? Rachel?
I don't know. At least that's in our like current colloquial context.
Is that for German as well, or only English? I'm just curious.
I don't know. That was the like idiot person search, which I kind of wanted to know in like our current context what it is that we look at as the distinction between liberty and freedom. But I would like to know the current context as well if you're able to find that in the massive document we have.
Yeah. So Hegel's theory of freedom turns on the answers to these questions. 1, the boundary between oneself and the other is not fixed or permanent, either in the life of the individual or throughout history, nor is the content of self fixed or permanent. But one depends on one's self-consciousness. An initially plausible view is that I am my thoughts, perceptions, desires, and body, and that I am free insofar as these and my pursuit of them are not other determined. Okay, so that's one. Hegel sympathetic to this view, but felt that one's desires and external view are not. Two, Hegel considers several types of other determination and responds to them in different ways. Slavery, for example, his paradigm of social political unfreedom has rightfully been simply abolished since it is at odds with the essence of man. Casual determination by nature, more prominent in the life of infants and primitive peoples, is gradually reduced by culture. So social and political control is never eliminated, but first, the modern state allows more subjective freedom than the ancient, and second, ethical life is, and in philosophy, is seen to be an expression of the rationality that lies at the core of oneself, and thus not wholly other than oneself. And then the third sort of sense of freedom, in this logic, transitioning from necessity of freedom to the concept occurs when, capital C concept, guys, occurs when the necessity with which one thing determines another becomes so intense that they cease to be distinct. Freedom internalizes rather than supplants necessity. Usually then, Hegel's thought as a type of freedom, thought on a type of freedom takes a distinct route. The attempt to sever one's relation to the constraining other by ignoring it or by abolishing it are, though historically fruitful and successful. Freedom lies rather in the identity of the other with oneself. The identity need not be the close identity of the Greek city-state, but the differentiated identity of the modern state that accommodates elements of the rejected or sublimated solutions, such as critical reflection and pursuit of self-interest. Identification of the other with oneself involves three distinct aspects. Man makes the other less alien by his practical activities on it. He reforms society and cultivates nature. Two, he discovers that it's not wholly other by his theoretical activities, empirical and philosophical studies of society, blah, blah, blah. Three, he makes it less alien by his theoretical activities on it to reveal the thoughts involved in one's society, etc. Is not only discover, but enhance its affinity to oneself. And it goes on. And that's the general discussion of freedom that they include in this dictionary.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe that can ground things a little bit.
Ultimately, that was really helpful.
Yeah. Also, when you put that many words, ultimately, the person who's writing this will have a certain perspective on Hegel, but I'm sure we can all accept that.
I think Hegel would be really upset at the idea that there isn't an objective way to read him.
Absolutely.
I simply cannot accept it.
What?
This author's.
Do you want to write a 4-page rebuttal?
Why can you not accept it, Santi?
Yeah, I don't.
You don't accept it, or you don't not accept it?
I don't not accept it.
Not accept it. You do not accept it.
I keep thinking of that meme that's like probably like a still from like porn, and it's like one girl like feeding the other girl milk.
Yes.
You guys know the meme format? Yeah. That should be us with Hegel.
Wait, is Hegel feeding us milk, or are we feeding Hegel milk?
Or are we feeding each other Hegel, which is the milk?
Oh, yeah.
We're feeding Julian is the girl pouring the milk out.
And we're all the other girls.
Yeah.
The milk is Hegel.
No, Zoom is the girl feeding Hegel the milk, and then we're all of us.
Okay.
Yeah. Zoom is the agent of history at this current time.
Wait, are we
literally
Google
using
Hangout?
Google Hangouts? Indeed.
We are in a Google Hangout.
Google.
Proverbial Zoom.
Yeah, I'm very anti-Zoom. I missed a conference call the other day because it was on Zoom and I didn't want to go on it.
You've avoided Zoom this whole time?
No, I hate it because when I did it with the students, it didn't work, and so I decided I hate it. I still use it a couple times. I just don't like it.
Never been on it. I'm very glad to say that. So
We should go back to Discord, guys,
Dude, I have
because
so many footies.
we're pro gamers.
what
Yeah, I
happened
miss
to
the
Skype?
Discord.
Discord just pissed off so many people and prevented a lot of people from joining, and that's my only perspective on it. Discord
I
was great
joined.
because you could directly link the audio into OBS without having to create a new like MIDI audio multi-output device that I did on this computer. But you know, you win some, you lose some.
See, Discord is superior.
You can't do screen share on
Yeah.
Google Hangout, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
you can.
I bet you can.
Hit the little wheel on the upper right.
Wait, so why does everyone use Zoom?
Because
Oh,
of
I think
marketing.
because Google Hangouts has a limit. And then I think it's a 15-person limit, but then it also, I think there's a couple things. If you're not a company that doesn't have a Gmail, you can't really use Google Hangouts. And then, and then I think that Zoom has like I think that to do Google Hangouts like in a larger, more corporate way, to have like many accounts and have all these different features, it probably costs some amount of money. And then the Zoom also costs some amount of money, but I think that's sort of a balance.
What about Skype, for example? Like, honestly, there were so many online video chatting things. Zoom just showed up on the scene.
Whatever happened to Skype?
Yeah, what did happen to Skype?
Yeah, RIP.
Like
That was,
everyone
like, the thing
had
back then.
Skype.
I think it became
I
too
think-
complicated.
I
like
think
the
Facebook
UI or
bought it.
something.
Oh, I think it's probably true, Santi.
Ariel.
Yeah, when you do Messenger.
Oh, Harold says hi.
Yeah. That's a lie, but it's okay.
She said you win.
Oh, okay. I thought you had headphones on. No.
I do have headphones on.
Hmm.
You know what I mean. I think Zoom has a nice, its screen sharing thing. It works weirdly well. I think that's another reason why people like it.
Right, yeah.
I would like to point out that we're in 4 different states right now, and that's pretty.
What
lit.
states?
Damn.
California, baby.
You're in California? Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I was in
California loving.
California.
I think we all wish we were in California right now.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I'm from there, so it's like really deep.
Ditto.
Oh, you are? Where in California are you from?
I was born in San Jose. I lived there until I was 7.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
sweet.
Holy shit! This is
I
deep
miss it.
lore.
We're neighbors.
So now I'm in Wisconsin like a loser.
Oh my
That's so
goodness.
different.
But it's nice. It's
Oh my
got its
goodness.
No,
I wish I was-
Wisconsin is the Spartan Warrior Society, and
Yeah.
I fully support it.
Yo,
Yeah.
California is definitely not the Spartan Warrior Society. I'll tell you that.
No, it is not.
It is a lazy place.
That's dope.
It's
Fuck
lazy,
you.
it's lazy, but
Growing up in Massachusetts sucked, y'all. I just want to say.
Yeah, Massachusetts. New England is a
Sucks
dreary,
ass.
shitty
It
place.
sucks ass.
You didn't
New
like all
England
the
is
Ethans?
haunted. Like legitimately haunted.
Yeah.
And I mean that
there's
in like all senses of that word.
in like
Yeah.
a boring way too. It's like
The
haunted in a
specter-
boring way.
The specter of Puritanism hangs over
Yep.
everything.
yeah, it
Like,
haunts this place.
Dude, the specter of Puritanism really haunts
It
this
does.
place.
Dude, they're like fucking. Like,
People are cucked. They're cucked.
there are supermarkets in Massachusetts where they will like put a chain over like the alcohol aisle on Sunday.
See, that would people would start like taking arms in Wisconsin if that happened. Like, that shit won't fly here.
The spirit of freedom, it's not here.
I have to
I
say,
spent 3 hours in Massachusetts this month, and I swear to God, just everyone seems like they were anemic.
Oh god, you were Northwestern Mass, right?
I know. It was just
wait,
deep
was
north-
I on the phone with you for an hour of that?
Yes, no. You only called me once I was in Troy, but everyone was either anemic or like I passed through a village where everyone was like they're truly just they weren't even Amish, but it was like a five building colony of people wearing simple clothing in the
Mennonites.
in the 18th century sense.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Mennonites!
I mean,
Mennonites.
I'm
There's a
used to
huge Mennonite
Mennonites.
population around here.
Oh yeah.
Or they're hardcore.
Enormous.
Mennonites are always. I find them to be the most. All the Mennonites I've met have been, and they've all been Wisconsin Mennonites. Have been the most arrogant people I've ever met. Just.
They are.
I've heard that too.
Objective.
There's a huge Mennonite population upstate New York.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Seeing them
They
make
make a
fun
lot
of
of-
homeless people for not having a strong labor spirit is just.
Oh, okay. Actually, never mind. Julian, I've heard my anti-Mennonite stories from you. I just realized that. I just want to isolate this feedback loop. Anything I know about Mennonites being arrogant came from Julian.
I can tell you, the Wisconsin Mennonites, they will use technology. They will do all of the stuff like normal people do, just as long as it's someone else's. So they're constantly coming over to your house, like,
Oh my
"Can I
God.
put some stuff in the fridge? Can I use your phone?"
That's the worst.
Like, it's not there. So
Realize
it's
yourself.
when
fucking
I
leeches.
was right when I was going to school, I took the train across the country to do it, and there's this like huge gang of Mennonites on this train with me for 3 days, and I had no idea who they were. I was so confused, and I think I texted her because I didn't want anybody to hear me, and I'm like, who are these strange people who speak a weird Germanic language and look a little Amish but are wearing like bright colored polyester clothing? And she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You're on a train with Mennonites. I bet they're rowdy." And they were like so loud, and they took over the entire observation cart, and they were constantly taking photos of the fucking disposable camera.
I will say, as far as the more conservative separatists, religious separatists, the Amish have tripled in their population over the past 10 years. So
Really?
we're being slowly
That makes
taken over.
sense.
I have impulses sometimes.
Yeah.
They just really, those strawberries really draw people.
Also,
I'm
I'm
one
sure.
life trauma away from becoming a painter, you know?
No.
Like,
I
dropping
am
out.
one display of capitalist excess away.
Wait, by the population increasing, is that just by like massive
I'm one
childbirth?
bailout. I'm one corporate bailout.
Phoebe, they've had converts. That's
From never
mostly what it
shaving
is.
my beard.
I'm one other meme account thought that I follow on Instagram sharing their OnlyFans away from converting into the
They can't.
I'm
be-
sure they also have very strict baby making laws in Amish communities.
in a good way, or what are you
In
saying?
a bad way.
Oh,
In like every
not
chick
you.
has to like
You can't fuck.
Yeah.
no, they have to like make 10 babies.
Oh.
They
Like
make
a
really
baby
good
quota?
cinnamon
You can fuck once every 9 months.
I did actually have another question related to the original source material. If anyone
Oh, please.
Oh yeah.
Please
Well, that is
focus
why
us,
we're here
Rachel.
after
For the
all.
love of
Why
God.
So, I mean, obviously Hegel's talking about nations becoming self-aware of their national spirit, and that is the, beginning of the end. And it's down from there. And if not, he talked about how, the nation can just be stagnant, it's just doing what it does, but there's no more growth. So it's, dead, but it's still existing. It's ghost nation, and I was like, God damn, that's interesting. But, my initial impression was America died in the 1950s. That was what the epitome of our capitalist dream was. And now we're just stagnant and we're not growing anymore and we're just a dead nation.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah. That's what I was thinking
I'm
when I read it.
tempted to hold that belief, and yet, as someone who still views the overcoming of capitalism as the most progressive thing for the freedom of the spirit, I really would. I think of the failure, the counter-revolution against Reconstruction in the 1860s to 1870s as being the moment where we started our decline, and perhaps it was the 50s where we finally died, but it was a death that started when we failed to complete the second revolution.
Who killed it though?
Nixon.
No, I think
No,
that
we like Nixon.
I think that Andrew Johnson
When you
killed
take-
it.
That's a hot take.
Yeah,
When-
that's
when-
a really hot take, Phoebe.
That's an example of a hot take that you could tweet.
I
Yo, when
think
they
Andrew
took this country
Johnson
off the fucking
killed
gold
our
standard.
relation to the absolute. when we started
It's
to regress in Reconstruction, and thus inviting in God, Jesus Christ,
What?
horrifying.
That.
Phoebe, put it back up and say things so we can see that picture a little bit larger, please.
Tricky dick.
Nixon?
It's a little painting of Nixon.
Did you do it?
When did you do it?
I did that this morning. I'm sending it to a friend as a
This
joke.
morning?
This morning?
Okay, so am
Yeah,
I right
you're
in that that
Nixon
looks
was
like a
really
Bush
silent.
painting, like a George W. Bush painting?
You gotta say that again, Julian.
It does. Am I right in saying that that looks like a George W. Bush painting?
It
Yeah.
does.
Like in the style of
Can I
Bush.
see it again? Can I see
It's
it
in
again?
it's in the style
After Bush.
of Bush Senior.
Oh, that
Junior.
he would paint?
Yeah.
So much work. I'm gonna get up. I'm just gonna
It's
keep the
titled
painting next to me now.
Spiritual Daddy.
That's good. I think you really captured his essence.
Thanks. We
He was cute, like in a.
The eyes of a trickster.
Like a Papa
He
Smurf
was
kind of way.
He was endearing. You know.
Especially when he sent tanks to Detroit.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The
Our
Kent,
favorite president.
the Kent State Massacre anniversary is coming up real soon, by the way.
Here.
Hey.
To the
You had something
progression
to
of the
say
state.
about this, and I interrupted you for Phoebe's amazing art.
I don't know what I was talking about, so it's all right.
God damn it.
We were talking about how the counter-revolution against Reconstruction was the
I think that
the
America,
bell which told for the eventual decline of this great nation. But so the argument could be made that at some point in history, the United States of America held the torch of the absolute aloft. And it was
I
the,
absolutely believe that. We had
Yes.
the most advanced bourgeois revolution.
Who has
exactly.
now?
That I
Wait,
mean,
what? The bourgeois revolution?
That the bourgeois
CCP,
revolution
Phoebe,
was
come
the
on.
most advanced in America. That even France's bourgeois revolution was ultimately defeated prematurely in the favor of imperialism, and that America held it aloft at the highest
I don't
stage of
know,
development.
Napoleon was bringing the civil code to the rest of Europe, destroying the monarchies. Who has it today? Obviously, Bashar al-Assad. He's the Napoleon. we made this point last time.
Yeah,
One,
I mean, after
no,
you watch
we
the
did
Adam
not.
Curtis documentary, that's not wrong.
Are you talking about the
I
powers
read
and
the-
nightmares?
Wait, are you talking about hypernormalization?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
What is that?
The most
Like-
woke 3 hours you'll ever see.
Yeah,
Hypernormalization.
yeah, it's an Adam Curtis documentary about how the West blamed Gaddafi for everything Assad's dad did, basically, and also comparing it to like hyper financialization in the economy. I don't know. It's a weird one.
Assad just wanted freedom and to be liberated from the West. He just wanted us out of their fucking business, and they were the victims the entire time.
It's like I don't hate Baathism, but you know, it's just...
Well, I make the case that Napoleon was fighting against reactionary monarchies, which Assad kind of is fighting against reactionary monarchies.
Well, okay, wait. Okay, so this is like really getting beside the point. But I read this this weekend, and it kind of like blew me away.
Kind of, I don't know.
So there was a New Yorker piece on like just sort of a like following. I mean, it's just like sort of an update of the situation that the SDF is currently after the U.S. fucked them. And it's like it's an okay sort of background information on like some
Wait. The who?
the SDF.
Right. So like the Kurds.
The Kurds.
Rebrand.
Well, yeah. The rebranding makes a lot of sense in that they're
Kurds.
they're actually a minority Kurd army now.
Well, the SDF is that coalition.
Yeah, but anyways, so it was this. It's like this follow up, and in it describes a lot of the transformations that happened in Raqqa, which was the city that Trump just destroyed. fighting against ISIS. I mean, there were Kurdish forces who said that like they were like, yeah, we would call in a U.S. airstrike for just like a lone gunman. Like the whole city was just overturned, and the U.S. had been paying for the reconstruction, and then we stopped paying for the reconstruction, and then the Gulf states and Europe tried making up for some of that, and they gave them a quarter of the amount of money that had been raised to restore Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's
then,
because it wasn't Louis Vuitton and fucking Chanel donating. It was just the filthy fucking European.
And that there's absolutely no charity or charity or any form of nonprofit who is funding reconstruction in Syria right now.
No, of course
not. But the big thing is, so people have moved back to the city. It has a pretty big population now. There are parts of it that are very lively. And I found out the Raqqa.
Okay.
And apparently no one is squatting in the entire city. Everyone pays rent.
Oh,
incredible!
What? So they pay rent, and so oftentimes if the person who owns this building, who God knows where they are now, if that person is dead, then these real estate agents will track down their family.
Oh my god!
So I read this whole article. This is the thing that stuck with me. And then Julie and I had Christian read the article, and then Christian also just responded to me immediately with that one fact, being like, "What the fuck?"
My goodness.
It's because it definitely feels to me like that, just when you are striving for a sense of normalcy, that's what that is. Yeah. But it's so wild to me because they're a socialist group. It's under socialist territory.
Dude, the YPG are socialist.
Is it fully controlled or
what?
Nothing. Nah, then Julian's gonna get mad at me if I lampoon the YPG and the Kurds.
I mean, listen, we were there when we met. She was literally the vice president of the SDF at that time, and
the one at CUNY, the lady at CUNY, that was with David Harvey.
That's who
the
she
one
was.
Who was begging the audience for American money.
Absolutely. I mean, they're totally full shills for the American money and American support. It's something where it makes absolute sense. I understand how they ended up there, and I don't disagree with any. I don't disagree with any of the decisions they made to get to where they ended up to today. However, it was a poison pill, and that poison pill saved a lot of lives, but it ultimately will end with their with their destruction. Maybe I fully support the Project of Kurdish Liberation and the sort of the project of the PKK in Syria, because let's call it as it is.
I'm sorry, but when the PKK renounced Marx instead of Bookchin, that's their downfall right there.
They didn't renounce. They renounced the project of building a nation state.
Right. Okay.
That's when what they renounced. And it doesn't matter if they're not of a non-Marxist movement, as long as they're fighting for socialists should be able to support national liberation movements that are non-Marxist. That's, I think, a pretty foundational aspect of the politics. And a lot of the people who were part of the actual International Brigade were Marxist parties, whether in Turkey or Spain or Italy. And unfortunately, the way they described the actual situation on the ground in Syria was that it was a sort of quasi-crypto-Stalinist sort of movement without a state. Anyway, that's all to put my contradictory thoughts down on it. I don't think it's as simple as support or not support on the basis of ideology. Ideology is just sort of the dressing which helps address their material conditions, not the real substance of any actual movement.
Yeah, I would say that the article like is worth reading. It definitely simplifies some of the narratives in ways. So like one of the big things that Christian said that I'm not quite as aware of is that U.S. foreign policy is considered sort of like a blob because it's somewhat autonomous, not really autonomous, but it sort of exists not necessarily at the whims of the presidents in the way that like we think of it.
Well,
And
there's
so
an actual deep state and conflicting interests within that deep state.
yeah, and so it's so that generally like with a new president there will be some changes, but you're not expecting like just like full in foreign policy. And so I think one of the most interesting elements of it is just how absolutely confused everybody in the DoD was when Trump pulled out.
Well, there were times in Syria where Pentagon jets were like bombing CIA assets.
Yeah, I mean,
because of the shit, like the shit was so convoluted, and everyone was giving money to like all these different factions who were at times like fighting each other.
Which is sort of like it's one of the reasons that the SDF was never really invited to participate in peace conferences. They weren't because they're not considered like an official.
Well, the only legitimate peace conferences that have been ever had, I feel like, are like the Russian, Syrian, Iranian.
I don't think so. I don't know if I consider that legitimate. I don't necessarily consider it more or less legitimate than the ones of the UN. I just don't know if I would also consider those legitimate.
Yeah.
But I guess that's an interesting question.
Phoebe, what word would you recommend putting in the New Yorker like search box to find the article you're referencing?
Oh, it's called Abandoned. It came out the most recent one. The people who live here have a New Yorker subscription. So I read the New Yorker now.
I mean, I just pirate it online and keep clearing my cookies cache so it doesn't keep thinking I've used up my 5 New
it's
Yorker
a pretty
articles.
simple solution, honestly.
No,
The
yeah,
New
you
York
got
Times won't let me get anywhere near it. It's mad at me every time I try to look at anything.
Yeah.
Because I have ad blocker, I literally can't read any articles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Fully attack me. If either Rachel or Phoebe would mind just copy and pasting the entire article and posting it on the email thread.
No, brilliant! I'll rip it out of the magazine and send it to you.
Good.
I'm not kidding. That's what I'm gonna do.
Please do not.
I'm gonna do it that way. Okay. What are you talking about? Julian, you know me. Of course I'm going to rip it out of the magazine and physically mail it to you.
I know. That is what you will do.
Oh, do you think I could get a media mail rate if I do that?
Not sure. Or you can just, on my next shift, wait outside of Mount Sinai West and wait for me to show up. And while I'm picking
I've
up
been
a
waiting
patient,
for you to text me. I made you Hu Jiaobing and you never texted me.
I've not gone to Mount Sinai West in a week, but next time I'm posted there, I will text you and just run up with the article flapping in your hands. I'll text you while I'm driving over there.
Okay, because I'm making Hu Jiaobing again.
What's Hu Jiaobing?
It's a Taiwanese bun.
Okay.
I made them. They're really good.
What's in the bun?
Excited.
So traditionally you'd make them with like meated things, but the way that I made them, because I don't eat meat, is I made basically like a juke or congee that has the consistency of risotto to make it a bit thicker. And so it was a cabbage, miso, anise juke. And then when I remake them, this time I think I'm gonna add pickled carrots and daikons in it to like give a little bit like of lightness. But the thing about Hu Jiaobing is that they're like very flaky on the exterior. They have like a whole exterior coating of traditionally lard, but I use ghee and flour so that it's like extra like nice and flaky.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, Julian.
Question.
I devised the whole thing so I could bring you lunch.
Question, good people. Do we have any last thoughts on Hegel? Because I'm about to hit 2 hours on recording time.
Where does the time go?
Indeed, we can continue hanging out. I just don't want to. I don't record anymore because the upload file will be so large that, and I refuse to edit anything.
Fair enough.
I also want to just say congratulations because for the first time, the R word was only used once, and that was by me.
It was by me.
Oh, fuck! Wait! Hold on. Let me.
It's not over yet.
No,
It's not over yet.
Wait, Julian, that was by me.
No, by was it by you? Okay, maybe it was
No,
twice.
wait, did you say
No,
Susie?
Julian, it was you. It
It
was
was
the
me.
first thing I heard when I joined.
Indeed. But I meant
could
it
tell
in
you
a
said-
non-
You said Phoebe or Susie, and I was like, I can't imagine that.
No,
Wait,
but I
Is
meant
the-
it in
someone
a
spell the R word so I know which one we're talking about?
retarded. I'm sorry.
Retarded.
But I meant it in a
Retarded.
non-political
Wow.
sense, in just the sense of being stunted.
Gonna get demonetized.
Wait, Julian, did you
classical-
use the R word?
It's classical definition.
I definitely thought we were talking about the word revolution, like we were gonna take shots every time we say it or something.
Much less noble.
Unfortunately,
Susie, I
I
have,
wish that was our word with this stream. Unfortunately, we've been much just worse people since we started this.
We really should just start beeping out the R word so
That
that
would
people
be
think we're
so
just saying much more
fucking
miscellaneous
funny.
words.
Oh my god.
Wait,
That would
Like
be
people think we're
great.
just constantly dropping the N word.
If we self muted,
Yeah, right.
that would give us so
Like,
much clout.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess the people who don't understand this text are like,
The
I can't
world,
remember
the world
questions
is in
about
need
Hegel,
of more
though.
self-censorship.
Yes, Rachel.
I
Dude,
think.
that's like early 2000s aesthetic, like bringing it back, you know?
There's true leftism right there.
Yeah,
wait,
exactly.
okay, so
Touching
Susie, so
yourself.
I had
No,
a conversation with
Rachel
somebody
had a
this weekend.
genuine comment about the text that comes.
Oh, no, never mind. Go back to
Yeah.
that.
Go back to that.
Because, sorry.
I did. I was wondering. So one of the things he talks about is that the only way to achieve freedom is to have self-reflection of a nation's spirit. And he talked about the nation's spirit encompassing like religion, cultures, beliefs, attitudes, whatnot. So Hegel, as like racist as he clearly is in here, is he not arguing for having like cultural literacy in order to gain true freedom? Like if you recognize the context of the national spirit that you have, then you can get a greater understanding of the world spirit. And he's really trying to look for people to strive toward that like empathy and understanding of the world spirit and kind of get outside of their national spirit.
Basically, unfortunately, you missed the first part where he said that
I
only
did.
the people who understand or who are agents of history even can like be historians themselves in the first place, something like that.
Sorry, can you say that again, Santi?
Like he says like, well, in the first part of the text he talks about like the different types of history that are even possible in the first place, and he talks about how like the first historians were themselves like agents of history because they fully understood like the their own spirit and the context in which they lived. And people who didn't, and obviously not like they were part of the ruling classes because they were educated, like no one apart from them could like, you know,
No one apart from the first historians.
like no one apart from like the elite of those times.
Yeah.
could-
No one apart from like
Okay.
statesmen could
I'm
truly
going
understand
to
state
completely
acts.
disagree. I'm going to completely disagree in the sense that those original historians are not necessarily understanding the spirit, but that they are entirely pierced by it. That they
right, exactly. They're the full embodiment.
That they unreflectively just reproduce the spirit of their times into the text without ulterior motives, because they literally could not even think of presenting an actual argument or concept behind their history. They're relating events in a way that just reflects their standpoint. Rather than understanding, but just being like pierced by it. Sorry, what are you saying?
What is Alicia's choice of words?
Only the philosophical historian can even attempt to understand history and the spirit.
So is he arguing that the only way to be free is to be a historian?
No, I don't think.
No.
No, it's. I think that you're kind of on a similar path, but or not similar, sorry, like a sort of a right path. But I think it's not really. It's not cultural literacy in that it is distinctly like Christianity, and like being sort of involved in like your Christian understanding of the world.
I know that's definitely where Hegel's coming from. And so to a certain extent, I'd argue his own idea is imperfect in and of himself. Like, he is not the ideal embodiment of what he's saying is perfect, but is what he's ideally talking about cultural literacy?
I
Like,
would
he's
say
not there.
he does say that the person who best understands the spirit of their times, that person has a has
It's a
an
fully
efficient,
subjective person.
no, there's someone who has the greatest amount of efficiency in reflecting their times, but that everyone still functions through that immediate substance of their times, that substance that is spirit. And so, despite living, despite all your individual characteristics, despite all your learning, you're still a reflection of that spirit, and that you can only reflect that more efficiently.
Even nations themselves and their actions are this sort of reflection of this movement.
I don't know if we can make ourselves better positioned through education. I think we can make ourselves better positioned only in that we can try to embody our times and thus maybe profit off it in a weird way more efficiently. But
Well, by efficient, because what you're talking about is rationale, no, it's reason. Like by efficient, you're saying like with reason.
Efficient in that our understanding of our specific nation's spirit allows us to think, yes, reason in a way that reflects the nature of our times. And thus, and if that nature is the highest position, if that nature has sovereignty, because the nation that reflects the highest stage of the spirit has sovereignty over all other nations, which are ultimately weaker and should be subservient to that nation. Then you would be able to navigate the winds of the currents of history better.
Does it also mean like for the lived experiences of citizens, like to have a nation that's like cohesive with its principles? So like to have like, I don't know, like its constitution reflect how those things are enforced? Is he kind of implying that?
That is what objective
like for example,
spirit
like
nations.
Is. Okay, so like nations that are like not that, like nations that are failing, it's because like maybe in principle, like they will have those principles in writing, but they'll be unable to like follow through with them, like kind of like the third world, like is that
they have constitutions,
or that they literally are following through with them, but what they're following through with is a spirit at a lower form of development than what's going on in, say, the Slavic, or the advancement or whatever.
Why is the spirit at like a lower constitution though?
Because they haven't gone through the dialectical sort of progress of negation of like past worlds to the heightened sort of experience of
right, because there's like a lag.
There's lag. There's like severe lag in the organization game.
I would say that there's something really funky about it. I think for our time or like our like general like ways of acting, that it's definitely like a ton of diligent work, but that diligent work is not necessarily like in an academic sense.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah,
well,
please.
No, like what you're talking about, this sort of closeness and ability to reflect, and awareness all comes from like a diligent work towards like I guess it could be I guess like the idea here is it's historical, so maybe it is academic. I don't know, because in my impression, I'm all confused about the Christian shit. I'm sorry, it's very conflicting. And my impression under that is that it's like, sorry, what was that?
I feel like it helps to tune it out, quite honestly.
But it's so deeply like what he's talking about, because he's saying it, because it's like, there is this like work in there is an internal work or just a work in understanding. I don't know. I think I'm getting confused.
I think that like maybe viewing Christianity not so much as like something that reigns in the nation, but more as like a lens through which to understand how a nation should function. So it's just like I looked at like the thing that he talks about with the Holy Spirit and the Father and the Son more as like a metaphorical object by which you can view like the successful following through of the Spirit.
He also criticizes nations that have adopted Christianity, but despite that still have slavery, for example.
Yeah.
Like he criticizes the discrepancy between adopting the Christian faith like en masse and not fully like, you know.
He also did a good job of kind of explaining that his conception of God through this prism is just love. Like that's
yeah, that was a nice touch. Yeah, good on you, Hegel.
That to Catholics and Christians modern times, like in the last decade, they're like, no, that's not what the Bible says. Whereas Hegel back in 1830 is like, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he also says that like no matter what the icon you're praying to, it's like the same sentiment.
No, but then he kind of I feel like he sets that up in order to kind of refute it.
To shit on it.
Yeah.
Because he's setting up that whole thing about I think he's saying like that's the base level of like, but that's when he brings in the Spirit to be like, because he's talking about like human nature in opposition to the Spirit. So he's like human nature is the fact that you can see the same thing kind of reflected in everything, or like that example with Caesar where he sees like a small village and it's the same as the Roman Empire, but like then he's like what makes it not futile to study history? Because if you study it like that, then that's futile.
Exactly.
Then what makes it not futile is like the fact that there's a Spirit and there's like again that like spiral.
Right, the spiral.
Progression. So there is like kind of like it's not completely relative.
Right.
And I mean that prism is certainly like relevant, So Phoebe, when you're looking at what you think the crux of his argument is in that idealism, even through that Christian lens, what are you seeing he's going for?
No, I mean I just still take it like as being this sort of I mean, it's you can't have a oneness with God, but it is like, a momentary glimpse at the absolute. Like that's like the whole like, and he says freedom. That's how I'd taken it this whole time. This idea of like the Spirit's, the Spirit is freedom. It gets to freedom when it has like this full understanding of all of its actions and consciousness, and that the state's freedom is sort of one and the same, or the spirit of the state is one and the same of that.
I dig it.
Sorry, and I just say nation instead of state.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Just because.
Well, he says state and nation at different points.
And does he mean state as a social whole or state as a government? Or
oh, I don't know. It's going to get really confusing. He says national spirit, but then he talks about the state.
Maybe he doesn't.
He's probably talking about like governmental structure. I might be conflating different parts.
I might be separating them when they don't need to be separated. So, I'm curious. I'll investigate this further. I don't know if you found my that email I sent with the definition of the spirit or attempt at defining spirit in different ways helpful, but
I'm gonna have Corin give it to me.
Okay. It was just a quick email.
Quick is very funny.
Yeah, I don't know what. Quick email.
Very quickly sent email.
It was quickly
you
sent
sent it quite quick. It did not take a very quick amount of time to read.
No, not at all. It was 4 pages, but
yeah, I know when you sent that as if it was like a little like tidbit to read. It's like more reading, like more homework.
I just thought
it's like all,
it was helpful.
Like formatted weirdly.
I was listening to like someone talk on YouTube, and they're like,
Julian, we love all of your work. We love everything you do.
Yeah, it's not shitting on you, Julian.
Yeah,
no, totally.
We love you.
I understand.
I just heard a whole borough applauding for you.
Oh Lord. I'm glad I don't live next to a hospital. It makes me incredibly uncomfortable, but I see how happy it makes the nurses as they're getting to hang out with horses, which are brought to the hospitals for them to pet.
I'll take it back.
They applaud these people's inevitable death.
Thank you
Saji.
for dying for us.
Saji.
Julie,
Am I
have you
wrong?
thanked for your service yet?
Have I been what?
Thanked for your service yet?
Yes, and I'm gonna take that as time to stop recording. Okay, ending the recording now.